It's great, isn't it, to know that we're the ones that he loves. I find that incredible. I don't know about you. We're going to just explore quickly a little story from the Bible. So why don't you take a seat if you would like. We're going to hear a little more from the band in a minute. But we are going to just look at one of the stories of healing in the Bible. Just before we actually read the story, I don't know for you what the best present you've ever received has been. I asked Mel this earlier, my wife, and she was stumped. She couldn't think off the top of her head. And I was just thinking in my head of all the Christmas presents I bought her and thinking, well, why aren't they top of your mind? For me, the best present I ever received was this. Many of you who know me know I love my coffee. I start the morning with a mug of espresso. Like I need it. I'm known for my energy anyway. But it gets me going. I love my coffee machine. And it was something that was bought for me a couple of years ago for my birthday. Mel orchestrated the whole thing. She got a bunch of people to club in together. All my friends chipped in. And at the end of it, I got this beautiful coffee machine, which has served me well for many years, and may it continue to do so. I'm looking forward to tomorrow morning. I know when Mel and I often almost have a little fight in the morning about who's going to get up first. She's like, no, she says it more because she feels she ought to get up with the kids. I say it because I want to get up. I know my coffee machine is downstairs. No, I enjoy spending time with my kids, but I look forward to first thing in the morning, coming downstairs and having my mug of espresso, sat with the kids. It is a brilliant present. Now, I'm sure most of us probably like gifts. I know in the lead up to Christmas, which has obviously been fairly recently, my kids were very excited about Christmas. My son, Joa, he decided to reword some lyrics from a fairly famous Mariah Carey Christmas classic, and he began singing this.
All I want for Christmas is presents.
He gets his beautiful singing voice from me, you can tell. Do you want to hear it again?
All I want for Christmas is presents.
All I want for Christmas is presents. Now, a gift is nice, and I'm really glad I've got my coffee machine. But the thing about gifts is they point, don't they, beyond themselves to a giver, to someone who loves us enough to give us that gift. So I wouldn't trade my coffee machine for the relationship I've got with my friends and my wife. That would be silly. The gift is wonderful, but those relationships and what that gift represents is far better. If Joa and Bethy and my kids, if they just got all the presents they wanted at Christmas, but didn't have a loving family around them, they would be worse off, surely. The thing about gifts is that they point to a giver. And the Bible tells us in the book of James that all good gifts come from God. There is one who loves us and cares for us enough to give us those good gifts. And we're going to read a little story from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 5, about a woman who was in desperate need of healing and came to Jesus. She came in secret. She tried to hide. And it says this. A woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She'd suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had. Yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, because she thought, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. Immediately, her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. At once, Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. He turned round to the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" "You see the people crowding against you," his disciples answered, "and yet you can ask, 'Who touched me?'" But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." It's an incredible story. You know, this woman had been suffering for 12 long years, and instead of getting better, had got worse. She'd spent all her money. She was destitute. She was an outcast. She had been thrown out of community because of the disease that she had. And she came, having heard about Jesus, this miracle worker, thinking, I only need to touch his clothes to be healed. She came hoping to receive that gift of healing in her life. She came longing to be made physically well, but wanting to do so in secret because she knew what it would mean to be exposed. And yet Jesus knew that the power had gone out from him. He turned and he was asking, who touched my clothes? Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know what you'd have done in that situation if you were that woman. Whether you'd have tried to hide, tried to sneak out of the crowd, tried to back away. But instead of doing any of those things, maybe she was hoping eventually he'd just stop asking. But instead, when he kept on asking, she came forward and she told him. And what she received was so much more than the gift of healing. She got that, but she was able to receive Jesus himself. He called her daughter publicly. Her faith drew on his power, but he offered himself. In calling her daughter, he invited her into the family of God. He restored her dignity. He restored her reputation. And he gave her status. Every gift is an invitation to know the one who gives. When Jesus gives gifts, it's because he wants to be known himself. He's offering himself. Pete Greig, in his book, Dirty Glory, which we've been going through over the last few weeks and will continue to do so, he says this. He says, the focus of our every prayer should not be prayer itself, but pursuit of God's presence. When we come to God crying out, as we may be tonight, when we're here longing for a touch, for a miracle, God not only offers that, but he offers himself. Often we come and our focus may be just on prayer, on what we're asking for. I know for myself, whilst I talked about having received healing in my back, I've got pain in my shoulders, or one shoulder in particular. Many of you will know that I've had surgery on both shoulders. I've been seeing physios and consultants. I've been having steroid injections and various other things. And they've got to the stage where I've now been discharged because they say there's nothing left for them to do. I still have pain. And so it's easy to come to God and just ask for the thing that I know that I want. But what I want to encourage us to do tonight is to, as we come that way, because we are encouraging us to come for healing. That's the whole point of this meeting. But I want to encourage us that as we reach out to God for the thing that we need, for the gift of healing, for whatever it is, to not miss the fact that he longs to give himself, to receive more. Romans 8:32 says that God won't hold back any good gift from us. He's already given his one and only Son for all of us, to rescue us, to ransom us back into his family. And his promise is that having given the greatest and most costly gift, he would not hold anything back. So I want to encourage us to be expectant tonight of a God who longs to give good gifts. That's why we're here, many of us, because we're longing to receive those gifts of healing, those gifts of grace in our life. But let's remember that each of those gifts is an invitation to something deeper, to something more. Will we choose to simply ask for the thing we want, like the bleeding woman? Or will we go even further like she did and receive the restoration, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, that is offered, receiving the gift as well as the giver into our lives? That's our challenge this evening and our encouragement. I believe we're going to hear from a few people now. Do you want to introduce them, Debs? Thank you.